Great to have filmmaker, author Dinesh D'Souza back on with us. Dinesh, how are you?
Hey, Joe. Good to be on the show.
It's always a pleasure. I know that you're like out in Hollywood and you like had to break away from some big meeting with the big wigs to come and talk to us. So listen, that's great. We love everything you do. Your books have been amazing. The movie Obama's America 2016 was unfortunately prescient. It was right on in a lot of aspects, and I know that you didn't want it to be. You've got a new movie coming out now called Hillary's America, which I'm guessing is going to go ahead and expose her the way you did Barack Obama. Tell me a little bit about it.
So Hillary's America is an expose both of Hillary but also of the Democratic Party. With Obama, I focused just on this one unknown man who had come out of nowhere, and there was a part of his background, his history, that wasn't well known. And
Right.
I'm very happy we were able to call him right and show the kind of damage that he would do over the past 8 years. I think with Hillary, we're also dealing with a very dangerous moment in our history. But in some ways, I think Hillary comes out of the mainstream of the left, and the Democratic Party's history in this country is not well known. Well, I shouldn't say it's not well known. It's actually been covered up. So the Democratic Party's complicity in 150 years of exploitation, subjugation, oppression, going all the way back from slavery and continuing through segregation, lynching, Jim Crow, the Tuskegee experiments, the internment of the Japanese. There's a kind of a horrible history here, and the Democrats have very cleverly gotten away from it by blaming America for things that they did.
Well, I want to ask you, because that's a great point that you just made. By the way, there's a trailer for the movie Hillary's America that I posted on my social. I will move that to the top of the list again today so people can go and watch the trailer in front of the movie actually coming out later on in the year. But I want to ask you about that. You're right. You didn't mention the KKK, but of course the KKK was started by Democrats. You've got a history in this country, a well-documented history, that somehow in this day and age, the Democratic Party has convinced the new generation that Republicans did all that. It has convinced the new generation that America itself somehow did all of that, when it really was a faction of people. There were always people against slavery. There were always people in this country that were for freedom for everybody. But you had a faction, the Democrats in this country, for as long as we can go back, that were on the wrong side. How did they convince people that they were on the right side and that everybody else was wrong?
I think part of what they did very cleverly was that they converted the whole argument about slavery, Joe, into an argument between the North and the South. Now, the reason that that's misleading is because there were Northern Democrats led
Right.
by Stephen Douglas, and the Northern Democrats also protected slavery. So really the dividing line wasn't just North-South. It was between the Democratic Party, which was dedicated not only to defend slavery, but to present slavery as a positive good. I mean, slavery has existed since the dawn of mankind, but really never before the 19th century did there people who said that slavery is not only good for the slave owner, it's good for the slave. This was called a positive good school of slavery.
Wow.
The Democratic Party invented this argument.
It's Dinesh D'Souza, great author, movie maker. The new movie, Hillary's America, is it going to be out widely in theaters in July, or is the premiere going to happen in July and then it'll be out later?
No, we will have a premiere at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland,
Right.
the third week of July, but we're going to open wide, and by that I mean 1,500 to 2,000 theaters the next week, the week of the Democratic National Convention. So they'll be putting out their official narrative, what they want you to know about them, and we'll be putting out the unofficial narrative, what they don't want you to know about them.
It's Dinesh D'Souza. The movie is Hillary's America, coming out later this year in the summertime, and I can't wait to go and see it. When it comes to the narrative of this country, somehow, and in this day and age, worse than I've ever seen, and I'm sure you'd agree, we've got self-loathing. We did everything wrong. We stole the land. We killed the Indians. We enslaved the black people. It was white imperialism from Europe that just wanted to dominate and kill anything that was in their way. You and I both know that wasn't the plan. The plan was actually to offer freedom and liberty to people, whereas it had never been realized on this level ever before. How do we snap out of that? I mean, it was bad when Jimmy Carter was the president, and Ronald Reagan did a great job bringing us back together and making us proud of our country again. It's twice as bad now on steroids. How do we snap out of that?
I think the way we do it, Joe, is it's not by the defensive maneuver of saying these things didn't happen or that they were not so bad. The real way to stop it is to basically say, yes, these things did happen, but you, the Democrats, did it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this movie in the face of African Americans, of minorities, of immigrants, of young people, and we're going to point the finger for these crimes at the Democratic Party. So this is a case where the Democratic Party is like the guys who poisoned the wells and then come up dressed as the water commissioner, as if they're going to fix everything. They're the ones who caused the problem in the first place. I mean, a really good example is that after the Civil War, the Republicans passed the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendment, granting not only emancipation but equal rights under the law and voting rights. Now, the Democrats blocked those amendments, opposed them, and then, in a sense, prevented them from being meaningful for 100 years. And then when the Civil Rights Movement came along 100 years later, the Democrats claimed credit for essentially extending to blacks rights that they themselves had suppressed for a whole century.
It's amazing. I can't wait to see it all spelled out in the movie. Hillary Clinton, without Bill Clinton, I firmly believe she would have no chance at anything. But the fact was, he was a great salesman, very, very slick, extremely left-wing. I mean, people act like he was moderate and got along great with Newt Gingrich. That didn't really happen. But he knew how to sell the American people on what it was he was trying to sell. Plus, he had a conservative House and Senate, so he had to come off as more moderate. Hillary Clinton, far left person who learned from the guy who wrote the book on radicals. She's a Sololinskyite, and we all know that. But she's getting 88% of the black vote in Mississippi. She's getting 76% of the black vote in Nevada. How is it that people have been snowed so badly by this woman? Is it because of the prowess of her husband as a politician?
I think there's a lot that you just said, and I do think that Alinsky openly boasted about learning a lot of his techniques from the mafia. Now, the genius of the mafia is that what these guys would do, the way they would rope people in, is they would figure out what is it that people need or want.
Yeah.
And then they would cultivate a dependency. It could be drug addiction. It could be a addiction to prostitutes, whatever. And then you become one of them. You become owned by them. I think this is exactly the strategy that the Democratic Party, and Hillary's part of this, have used with the black community. The basic idea is if we can get these guys to depend on us for housing, for food, for clothing, for health care, where else are they going to go? It's going to be almost like the old plantation. Now, we're not going to make them work for it, but we are going to make them vote for us.
But we live in the cult of personality, Dinesh, and that's really why Obama got elected. Obama didn't say anything when he ran for president, but he was a guy who could read the teleprompter and change his speaking cadence in front of whatever audience he was in front of, and he was a guy you wanted to have a beer with. Nobody wants to have a beer with Hillary Clinton, so how is she benefiting?
Well, you're quite right about that, and that's why Hillary's in trouble. I mean, if an aging socialist, Rip Van Winkle from the 1960s, Bernie Sanders, who just woke up from his 20-year nap, I mean, if this guy can run even with her and beat her in Michigan,
yeah.
I mean, he's vulnerable. So it's by no means a fait accompli she's going to win the election. Absolutely not. The Republicans obviously need to get their act together, but the truth of it is Hillary is vulnerable in a way that Bill Clinton was not.
What is it that my listeners, and again, it's Dinesh D'Souza, the new movie is called Hillary's America. It'll be out in the summertime, and I'm going to put that trailer back up on the front of my Twitter, my Facebook, the Instagram. I'll put it everywhere I can, and go and check it out because you're going to want to see this movie. As we go forward, you've got people that are looking at Hillary Clinton, and there are people who, because of her gender, are definitely going to vote for her. But here's something interesting. What we heard yesterday after the primaries was we heard that some Republicans are actually considering voting for Hillary Clinton. How ridiculous would that be?
Well, that would simply be suicide.
Well, it's because of their fear of Donald Trump.
Right, but the point is, the problem with Trump, look, Trump is a wild card, and I know he wasn't a Republican the day before yesterday and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But the truth of it is, I'm not scared of Donald Trump in the way that a lot of people are. They think he's a fascist or he's Mussolini. You know what? If he stands and turns to the side, he looks a little like Mussolini, but that's where the resemblance ends. Trump is kind of a blowhard. What's he really going to do?
Yeah.
And don't you think that Trump with a Republican Congress would be able to accomplish a lot? And anyone who thinks that after 8 years of Obama, we actually need Hillary is, to me, far more dangerous than Donald Trump.
Is Barack Obama, in your opinion, going to back Hillary? Because he hasn't been very vehement about who he supports here and even had lunch with Bernie Sanders. Do you think that he's afraid of what she would do to his legacy, or do you see them as the same person politically?
No, I think that Barack Obama has made a calculated decision that despite his distaste for the Clintons, he nevertheless trusts them the most to protect his legacy and cover up his crimes. Look, the last thing he needs is somebody to start lifting rocks and looking to see what's been done over the past 8 years.
Right.
Sanders, although on the left, is ineffective. Hillary is, if there's anything you say about Hillary, she's tenacious. She puts her head down and marches forward. You almost have to bludgeon the woman to the ground and sit on her to keep her down.
Right.
So I think Obama admires that kind of Alinsky-eyed tenacity, and of course they both had that common mentor.
When my listeners watch the movie, and they're all going to go and watch the movie, Dinesh, what's the one thing you're going to teach them about Hillary Clinton that even the most conservative of viewers are not going to believe? Really? That's what Hillary did? That's who she is?
Yeah, what I did with Obama was I was able to tell a story about Obama where when people left, they got him. Yeah. And they knew that if I was right, he would do certain things. He would, for example, undermine our allies and strengthen our enemies.
Yep.
They knew he would do that, and I was going up against the rival school that just said Obama's a bungler. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just an amateur. And I said, no, he knows what's going on. That's how you can accurately predict where he's going to go.
Right.
So I think we'll do the same with Hillary. We will be able to call Hillary so precisely that people will know who she is. They'll be super scared of her, and they will do what is necessary to defeat her.
Now, you spent a little time behind bars. We talked about it last time you were on for something that you didn't even understand was illegal. You were helping a friend out, and you donated more money than allowed or something to a campaign. Having said that, knowing and I know, and everybody listening, even the Democrats listening, all know that Hillary Clinton lied about Benghazi. She was the worst Secretary of State we've seen in modern history. She turned away requests for more safety and security. The blood of those four, in my opinion, are on her hands. But even worse than that, this server gate, man. I mean, what she did with a private server and classified top secret, even higher than top secret information. Anybody, I mean, seriously, Dinesh, if you and I had even breathed on a server in that context, we would be behind bars for many, many decades. What's going to happen with her? Is she going to get a free pass?
I think that the Democrats are going to protect her, and that really the only way that she will be called to account is, frankly, if the Republicans come to power and open an investigation. So two things need to happen. Number one, the Republicans need to win. And number two, they need to have a guy who's tough enough that he's going to say, look, we need to look under these rocks. There's a lot of bad stuff that's been going on. Let's at least bring it all to public light. And if that happens, then she will be held. Look, I think these guys like Hillary, they feel that they are above the law. They are beyond accountability. And this is also historically. I mean, Bill Clinton went to the funeral of Robert Byrd. Robert Byrd was in the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton said at the memorial, he goes, of course Robert Byrd was in the Klan. He goes, look, in those days you had to be in the Klan to advance in the Democratic Party. So Republicans are called to disavow David Duke and have disavowed David Duke. But in the Democratic Party, Klan membership is not only allowed, it's actually considered sort of the way you got ahead in those days.
The name of the movie is Hillary's America, coming out this summer. You got to make sure you go see it. I will make sure to post that trailer again on my social. Before I let you go, A, congratulations on your impending marriage in a couple of weeks. God bless you. She's a great lady. And B, with the passing of Nancy Reagan, did you know Nancy Reagan very well? I know that you worked with President Ronald Reagan. Did you know her very well? And what are your thoughts about President Obama going to South by Southwest instead of going to her funeral on Friday?
Well, first of all, I'm super excited about my wedding to Debbie. It's coming up very soon, and it's the highlight of my life.
It's awesome.
Second, I was in a salon in the mid-'90s after I wrote a book on Reagan, and there I see Nancy Reagan in L.A. reading my book. So I actually went up to her and said hello, and she laughed, and she said how much she was enjoying my book on Reagan. That was my only one-on-one direct encounter with Nancy Reagan. Another time I was giving a speech on Reagan at the Reagan Library, and unknown to me, Nancy Reagan, it was a big event, she was in the audience, and I was actually, I'd referred to her a couple of times, but having no idea that she was there. So, lovely lady, a great support to Reagan, and must be looked at as part of the Reagan legacy.
Should Obama be going, or is that not protocol? I'm getting people now telling me that it's not protocol for a sitting president to go.
I don't think it's a requirement that he go. Typically, I think for first ladies who've died, it's typical for the president's wife to go. I wouldn't make an issue of it.
Okay. Well, if you say so, I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Dinesh, we always appreciate the time. I look forward to seeing you in Cleveland. Hopefully we can go and check out the movie together at the premiere, and I'm excited to go and see what you put down. I know that you didn't want to be right in Obama's America 2016, but you were, my friend, and you were way right.
I appreciate it, Joe, and this time the stakes are even higher, so I'm very glad to be part of this debate.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon, Dinesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Soon, Dinesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Soon, Dinesh.